that's it, folks. As of the end of season 8, my favorite show, Castle, has been cancelled. Overall, it was a pretty decent run, with some pretty good stories and lots of character development. But the last season, as I feel, a little bit lacking. This is my thoughts on why. Now, a lot of the stuff set up in the previous seasons pays off in this one. Most especially things like Castle's detective agency and a new character named Haley, who turns to be a real friend to Alexis and really helps with the character development. Alexis is out on her own, though we don't get to see her place, and she's really doing quite well. Martha's often known as well, though she still loves to offer unsolicited advice. As her son says, does she offer any other kind? And overall, the relationship between Castle and Beckett is working out pretty well, despite a few hiccups I'll talk about in a moment. So overall, the show seemed to be going reasonably well in terms of character development. Ryan has a new baby son, and his daughter is adorable. And Espo is dealing with a bit of things from his past, but could possibly be leading towards more of a friendly relationship with Lainey, though I don't think those two will ultimately end up together again. And Beckett's now captain of the precinct, so that's a pretty cool jump up as well. But things are not exactly perfect in paradise. The main problem I have is with this season's story arc, Locksat. First, we have Beckett, pretending to become separated from Castle because of the circumstances. It seemed to me that after season 7, the writers were really running out of ideas for the relationship. For the first 7 seasons, they were working towards getting them together, even to the point where season 6, well, they were about to get married, and season 7, about halfway through, they finally did manage to get married. But with season 8, they figured, we got them together, now what? Now, of course, they did manage to get that resolved by having the two start working together again and finding out why Beckett had pretended to be isolated in order to keep Castle safe. That leads to the other problem. The discovery that Castle's memory loss, his deliberate mind wipe, was related to something connected to Locksat, which I think is kind of a ridiculous coincidence that the very thing they're currently working on is the very thing that he had his memory wiped about over 2 years previously. And of course, there's the ending of the show. You can understand, well, this was definitely supposed to be the season 8 cliffhanger, them lying on the floor shot and bleeding out. But the fact that the show was canceled meant they had to put in a kind of a hastily filmed, this is how it turned out bit at the end, an epilogue. Now, from my own personal point of view, you can see how they would have managed to get out of that cliffhanger. I mean, Castle was shot, yes, but he was only shot in the shoulder. He could easily have managed to lever himself up to his feet, get a phone, and call for medical assistance. As for the 7 years later epilogue, it may be a bit rushed, but personally I like it. Let's look at what we see in this epilogue. You've got a daughter who looks to be about 6, which would seem to indicate that Castle and Beckett start a family within the next year. And oh, you on, she's actually named Joanna after Beckett's late mother. As for the twin boys, I don't know what they're named. Maybe they're named after Castle's dad and maybe Rick Jr. So while it may be rushed, I like the fact that at some future point they will actually have a happy family. Beckett seems to be a natural mom, and she certainly seems to be enjoying having these kids around. You can bet that Alexis is a delightful aunt who probably spoils them. And Martha probably spoils them rotten, but then that's what grandmothers do. So I would definitely not say to skip season 8. I feel that in some of the story arc elements it's a bit lacking and definitely seems a bit rushed to the end. Overall, though, I still say it's a pretty decent series, and if you're going to keep watching it, by all means, I recommend watching from the first episode to the very last. I'm some Canadian guy, and that's my $2.